Hey guys, John the Morgile here. This is a re-release of a video that I did last year, although the volume wasn't loud enough for most everybody to hear it, so I'm going to re-release it and try to remaster the audio so that you can hear it a little bit better. Enjoy. On to the main topic at hand, because I gotta tell you, man, Angkor Wat is probably one of the most fascinating places that you don't learn about in school, or at least I didn't. If I did, I forgot about it. We certainly learned about the pyramids in Egypt, the Great Pyramids. That's drummed into our heads by the educational system, the mass media systems, all that nonsense. Which nothing against the pyramids at Giza, but how could something like Angkor Wat slip through the cracks, right? So sorry that I don't have bigger pictures to share with you guys. You can look up pictures of Angkor Wat as you're listening to this if you wish. I know it's kind of sucks to try to squint and look at these images, especially on a phone. I will get better capabilities going forward, but I'm basically using a laptop, not my PC, with all my stuff set up on it. And I'm literally like having to download OBS and download VLC Media Player just to see if it's recording. So it's like, it's a pain in the butt. But anyway, we're live. And yeah, Angkor Wat, man. So this place is massive. Like, there's really no way to get the scale of this thing, to understand the scale of this thing just from looking at pictures. Um, but it's just massive. It really is. I think they say that it's the largest so-called religious temple in the world, and it's just a ingenious example of ancient engineering that honestly we don't have the slightest clue how they built this stuff, especially according to conventional history, right? Like 1,000 years ago, when they say this thing was built, people were riding around on donkeys with buckets and chisels, which is just absolute nonsense. But we're going to get into the scale of this thing a little bit. That's really the main thing that I want to talk about, is just the sheer scale of not just this temple structure, but the surrounding moats and reservoirs, which are just amazing. Like it's jaw dropping, just the sheer size and scale and beauty and geometrical genius and just harmony of the place, right? Like feng shui to the max. You know what I mean? Yeah, maybe it was the monkeys that built it. Okay, so here's a little bit bigger picture. Now, okay, so again, here's the main temple at Angkor Wat. Here's sort of an overhead view where you can see this moat around it, right? Um, just absolutely massive. And besides the moats, you have these reservoirs, which you can kind of barely see off in the left-hand corner of this image, which are, I think it's 2 kilometers in width by 8 kilometers in length. Just absolutely massive. And honestly, I've been on a lot of construction sites, everything from highways to schools and hospitals and, you name it. Honestly, I've never seen anything on this scale in a modern sense. Like, I don't even understand how you could do this so perfectly, um, even with modern equipment, let alone with this, allegedly no technology whatsoever that they supposedly had 1,000 years ago when this thing was said to have been built, right? A quick correction on the last stream that I did. I said I was talking about Angkor Wat and the Taj Mahal, and I got my wires crossed a bit. I mentioned that the Taj Mahal, there was a legend that it was built in a day. That was wrong. That was supposedly Angkor Wat that was said to have been built in a day. And if you don't believe me, here it is right here on Wiki. Um, According to the legend, Angkor Wat was ordered by Indra to serve as a palace for his son. According to the 13th century Chinese traveler, I'm not going to say his name right, some believe that the temple was constructed in a single night by a divine architect. And, it is kind of interesting because when you learn about all these ancient cultures, pretty much all of them say that they came from divine, Genesis, right? And they were taught by divine entities all sorts of different things. Like I don't know, for one random example, the Japanese samurai swords, if I've got that right. The ancient ones were built to such a perfect mix, perfect smelting capabilities, whatever you want to say, folded so many hundreds of times to where we can't reproduce the quality of steel that they made back in ancient Japan, right? So, and then you look at the origins of Rome, Remus and Romulus. I mean, it's in every one of these ancient cultures where, their legends, as we call them today, tell that they were given technology by divine sources. So I mean that is definitely a pattern that we see here in all of these ancient places. But getting back to the images for a second, this right here, this structure, this temple, which is only just a part of the Angkor city, which they're now sort of scratching the surface on, this massive city with canals running throughout, just ingenious irrigation and hydraulics, architecture and design that it doesn't make any sense according to our standard history that these people who were running around in rice paddies and huts with maybe donkeys if they were lucky, there's no possible way that they could have built something like this with that technology. So it really is a testament to the fact. I mean, this isn't any sort of speculation here. The architecture and the engineering is a testament to the fact that our history is wrong. Our history is definitely wrong. There's places all over the world that are, just as spectacular as this. But, this one really is, it sort of stands alone even among the monolithic ancient temples, in my opinion. Again, just because of the scale of the thing, the complexity of it, hydraulic design incorporated into the city. I mean, it really, there's not enough words to describe just how frickin' incredible this is, especially according to standard history. Okay, so here we go. We've got these people going to call me now. So guess what? I'm not using my phone, so I'm going to turn it off. How you like me now, son? Okay. Yeah, so we don't have to worry about people calling me throughout this whole thing. So where was I at? So now, even according to Wiki, let's see, where do we want to go here? Architecture, site, and plan. History. Okay, because like this thing was only discovered like 150 years ago by the modern world, right? Didn't even know the thing existed. And as far as I'm concerned, we're basically led to believe that the natives to Cambodia are, very low tech, running around in the woods in straw huts. I mean, that's sort of the Western impression that we get when we think of people from like Cambodia, right? You're not really thinking of brilliant architectures and engineers who were able to produce something of just such grandeur and magnitude, right? And that's what I think we should be taught about in school is like how in the hell did they do this? But again, we already know that the educational system and a lot of the sciences in general are intended to mislead us about all kinds of things. I mean, including the very ground that we walk on. Okay, so everything is subject to question, in my opinion. Um, the history. Let's see. There was some parts of this, and I wish I could have highlighted them, so I'm not having to read through this as we go through. But they say that the initial design and construction of the temple, they say, took place in the first half of the 12th century. So that would be like the 1300s, I guess. No, I got that wrong. 12th century, 1100s, whatever. I always get that bass backwards, but you know what I mean. About 1,000 years ago, man, getting up to it. Um, so like, what kind of technologies did they have 1,000 years ago in Cambodia? If the people there today are living in straw huts, like how does a society go from building something which I don't think the Cambodians necessarily built Angkor Wat, but how do they go from building something like that to living in straw huts? I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. So that was it on the history that I wanted to just mention, that they say it's built in the first half of the 12th century. So like the first century would be 0 to 1. Yeah, so it would be like the 1100s, not the 1300s, right? Okay. So let's go down to architecture. I think it's interesting that the main temple itself, the big one right in the middle of that moat, it's supposed to represent Mount Meru, according to even the standard mainstream history. And we all know that, or at least I believe, that Mount Meru is the same thing as Mount Olympus, is the same thing as, all the other ancient cultures have tell of this central mountain, maybe Garden of Eden type thing. And of course, as a flat earther, you know that the central north, even Mercator has maps of the central north with a magnetic giant mountain in the middle. And it appears that all of these ancient so-called pagan religions have tell of this sort of Mount Olympus, Mount Meru type of thing. And so Angkor Wat, they say, is supposed to represent that. So, I mean, isn't it interesting that they'll give you that sort of information in Wiki, but that's about as far as they go. And, according to the mainstream history, of course, Mount Meru and Mount Olympus are all myths, right? It's just because the ancients were very creative, and it just so happens that they all had very similar myths about the origins of mankind, or humankind, as it were, right? So, yeah, it's definitely interesting that all of these ancient cultures have similar stories about the origin of people, right? So yeah, home of the gods, Mount Meru, as they say. All right. I'm sorry, y'all. And again, I'm using a laptop with no mouse, so forgive me for fumbling around here. My regular PC is a blue screen of death at boot up, so can't rightly use that right now, but hopefully I'll get that back up and running soon. So, okay, the outer wall. The outer wall of this main temple structure, Angkor Wat, is 1,000 meters, so 3,300 feet by 800 meters. 1,000 meters by 800 meters. I mean, that is just ridiculous, right? And that's just the outer wall, sort of perimeter of the thing. Surrounded by a 30-meter, or 98-foot, apron of open ground and a moat of 190 meters, or 620 feet, wide. So the moat's 620 feet wide, and over 5 kilometers in perimeter. Okay? So 620 feet wide, that's this moat right here. And however many 5 kilometers in perimeter around this thing. I mean, this is just massive. I mean, where else in the world, and maybe there's other places, but I can't think of any off the top of my head, that has a 5-kilometer perimeter, basically moat around it. That's just crazy. And this was all done by hand, right? Same thing with these reservoirs, which dwarf really just this entire moat structure here. The reservoirs dwarf that, okay? And these are, I say man-made, but whatever. They're not natural. They were made by some intelligent being. And modern history doesn't have any explanation for it because, of course, standard history is entrenched into lions. All of the historians and Indiana Joneses out there are taught, brought up believing that the Earth is a spinning ball. So when it comes to knowing their ass from a hole in the ground, they ain't got it going, bro. I mean, I'm sorry, we were all there at one point, but if you really believe that the Earth is a spinning ball when it clearly isn't, then you can basically be convinced of anything. And if the history books and the archaeology books, right, if they tell you that, here's the history and it wasn't possible for these Cambodian people to have such technology to build these places, then they kind of just, they mark it as an anomaly as opposed to rethinking their entire historical timeline, which to me, puts them right in the same frickin' under the same banner as like NASA. Okay, not that archaeologists and anthropologists and such are deliberately going out deceiving people about this sort of thing in our history, but they are literally brainwashed into this does not compute. It doesn't jive with what we're all taught and what we're all forced to regurgitate as little kids, and what archaeologists and historians are forced to believe in order to get their degrees. And so these sorts of anomalies, as long as we keep attacking the history or attacking unsolved mysteries in history from the standard sort of paradigm, you're never going to get it. Okay, we have to understand, and again, the archaeology, I mean, the architecture is a testament to the fact that these people must have had some sort of a higher technology that we give them credit for, right? I mean, that's plain and simple. You can't build this sort of a structure. And let's see, yeah, there's a bigger picture, but you can't much see anything there. You can't build this sort of a structure with buckets, chisels, hammers, and no sort of uh, high technology. I mean, it just is a testament to this fact that these people were not, running around in the mud in straw huts. You know, well, they damn sure are now because, of course, well, that's the thing. I mean, modern science has to sort of force evolution down our throats. So, according to modern evolution, or the modern paradigm, we currently right now are the pinnacle of technology in every sort of category, right? So we're the pinnacle of technology and knowledge and all this according to this sort of evolutionary fairy tale. And when you see these sort of grandiose structures, testaments unto themselves, it doesn't fit with that paradigm, and so they basically reject it as an anomaly. And that is, again, that's anti-science, bro. I mean, it is the opposite of science to just reject information that doesn't conform to your paradigm, and we just see this everywhere, everywhere. Right. So let's see. Let's just talk about. Oh, of course, I can't get a big image, you guys. I'm sorry. But let's just talk about like the beauty of the place, the massive scale. I mean, these people had it going on, man. They really did. They had it going on, and I would venture to say that they had better technologies or different branches of technologies than we have today that are far superior in many ways. I mean, I could look at images of this place all day. It's aesthetically pleasing. It's very what's the word I'm looking for? Symmetrical. It's got the divine sort of the. Sorry, what babe? What did you say? Okay, sorry y'all. It's got the divine sort of patterns. It is. It's just beyond the scope of something that I believe we could achieve today. And so that's why I think this site in particular, I wouldn't say it's more important than any of these sorts of sites that we find all over the world, by the way, but in many ways I think it is unique. Um, Not to mention, again, they say it is the largest so-called religious temple, but you know, I don't know, man. It doesn't make sense to me that these people would build such a place for some prince, as they claim in the wiki history, right? So you're really going to build a place with a 5 kilometer, 190 meter moat, whatever the dimensions were, a moat around it for some prince? Really? I don't think so, man. And when we understand what we do today about electromagnetics, the designs of these places appear to be for some purpose, for some output device, harnessing natural sort of ether energy or the prana, right? As the Hindus would say, or the yogis would say, it's prana. So if they were harvesting natural energy from the atmosphere, from the ether, it could, the output of that could be anything from pumping the water, because you wouldn't believe the complexity of these canal structures and just the sheer vast amounts of water that run through this every day or every minute or whatever. It's massive, uncalculable amounts of water. And if you look at documentaries on how they believe these people were controlling the flow of water, it's like they have these little generic ass like hand cranked machines that like dump buckets, like it's hard to explain, but like generic little, very simple machines to dump bucket by bucket water in the direction that they want it to flow for like irrigation purposes. This is absolutely absurd. Now, one of the things about this temple was that it appears to have been built as to utilize the natural river, right? So it was utilizing the natural flow of the river to, um, to fertilize the entire complex, not just the giant moat, but all of the canals around it. And apparently, at some point, it appears that process reversed. So instead of being an outlet for the river where it was feeding into the complex, at some point in history, the flow reversed to where the complex was feeding water back into the river. And so that's their theory as to why this just enormous, beautiful city and temple structures were abandoned all of a sudden. However, what I would say is that what if whatever free energy capabilities that this thing was intended to do, what if that was suddenly cut off and that messed up the entire aqua system? I mean, that makes more sense to me than, oh, well, the thing got way too complex and unruly, and so they just sort of let it go into disrepair, and then the water ended up working against them as opposed to working for them. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me that a culture that is advanced enough to build such a thing couldn't keep it up, right? I mean, it seems like it would be way easier to to keep up and preserve the infrastructure that they had built than it is to actually build the infrastructure, if that makes sense. So it's just, to me, it doesn't make sense that that people or whoever built this place somehow let it go into disrepair because it was just too unruly, and so they said, hell with it, we're going to abandon it. I mean, that's just absurd to me, but of course, when you're dealing with the conventional history, that's the sort of thing they have to say, because they can't get into, the whole mud flood thing. They can't get into the worldwide pre-ancient civilization that absolutely must have existed, but they can't admit that because it goes against all of their scientismic, liantismic dogmas, right? So, I mean, what a shame that people have been sort of blinded by our own arrogance and ignorance and beliefs so as to be just completely blind to something that's right in your face, a testament unto itself, self-evident, right? That whomever built this must have been very advanced, extremely advanced, and I just like, okay, could you imagine some modern day contractors trying to not even build this thing, but trying to get it so that it's functioning again? If they knew how to do it, I mean, it would be just such a massive, massive project that I don't think for all the money in the world you could do it, man. Because I mean, keep in mind, I want to say inflation, but whatever, markup that contractors charge for things is just ridiculous. It's getting to the point where it's almost as absurd as military spending, right? Where they spend $5,000 on a toilet seat or whatever. It is very similar when you're dealing with modern contractors. They just charge millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars for projects that that don't cost a fraction of that. And of course, businesses are there to make money, but at the end of the day, nobody's going to build shit like this for a profit. I mean, these people, whoever built this sort of structure, did this for a very specific purpose that we really don't fully understand, although I think that we are getting closer to it, right? So the whole free energy thing, I think that's definitely a part of it. Even something as simple as the water, getting water in and out of these structures. The Great Pyramids at Giza have a similar sort of theory behind them, where it appears that they were in fact built right up against the Nile River in Egypt, and the pyramids may have been pumping water into the cities in order to have things like fountains and running water and such, so on and so forth. Can you? Okay, thanks, babe. All right, so let's see here. Um, Let me go back to the Hangout and just make sure everything's still good. For all I know, I'm sitting here talking to myself. No, what's going on here? Okay, so we're still live. You guys still hearing me good? Is it crapping out? Anything's wrong with the stream? I don't know. Of course, this slow-ass laptop is going to take 5 years to load the chat. Yeah, of course, it's running Windows 10 with 3 gigs of RAM. So basically, just sitting there looking pretty, the operating system bogs down all the memory. Wrong thing. Oh, right. So, can you guys still see and hear the stream? Let me know. Right, so we talked about that. Oh, there was still some more stuff I wanted to go into here. Let me go back up to the top where the sections are. Style, features, central structure. The decoration, I mean, talk about just awesome. These decorations definitely have Hindu sort of aspects to them. You got like Vishnu and also very Egyptian-looking reliefs. Very unique architecture. Honestly, like if you were to try to build something like this today, I would say it would take 100 years and $5 quadrillion. Like, really, I just can't think of where it to. And frankly, I don't think that we have the capability, even today, to build with these massive stones that Angkor Wat was definitely built with. So, a little speculation here, but if they were using harmonic resonance frequency technology, moving stones and doing all sorts of crazy things with stones that we can't even comprehend or understand right now, perhaps they were able to do this much more easily than we thought. And again, the legend says that this place was built overnight. So, who knows, man? Who knows? Well, it's a legend, but honestly, I would not be surprised to find out that such a thing was true. I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, so the monument was made out of 5 million to 10 million. So basically, we can't even count the number of stones that the thing was built out of today. And people have been studying this for, over 100 years. And that's, either 5 million or maybe double that, 10 million sandstone blocks with a maximum weight of 1.5 tons each. In fact, the entire city of Angkor used up far greater amounts of stone than all the Egyptian pyramids combined, and occupied an area slightly or significantly greater than the modern-day Paris. Moreover, unlike Egyptian pyramids, which use limestone quarried barely a half a kilometer away all the time, the entire city of Angkor was built with sandstone quarried 25 miles or more away. So, like, if you've got donkeys, right, and that's your technology, wouldn't you build your site closer to where the stones are, like right up on those mofos? Like, how do you transport 1.5 tons sandstone blocks 25 miles on a donkey, right? And so if you're doing one at a time, right, that's 1.5 tons. But of course, when you're shipping things, you don't want to take one block at a time. You're going to want to take a buttload of them, right? So these people, or these entities, these intelligences, had the ability to apparently move massive amounts of very heavy stones many, many miles in order to do this thing. And we're not just talking about, they claim that they basically chiseled this stuff out, and, they've got all these really half-assed excuses as to how they did this way back when. But not only did they do that, but they also made each and every block beautiful. I mean, it's like they had a cookie cutter for sandstone. But it's all very original and detailed and unique and aesthetically pleasing and just, I mean, it's amazing. So they say the sandstone had to be transported from Mount Kulin, a quarry approximately 25 miles to the northeast. The route has been suggested to span 35 kilometers or 22 miles along a canal towards Tonle Sap Lake, another 22 miles crossing the lake, and finally 9 miles against the current along the Siem Reap River, making a total journey of 56 miles. Okay? So,
these stones right here, these capstones tell you if they're Corinthian.
Well, they can't see that. They can't see that, though.
They all use capstones different to their race and culture.
Right. So let's see.
If you're passionate about something like religion and all that.
Do you want the mic? Do you want the mic? Okay. Anyway. So let's see. Where was I at? Yeah, virtually all of its surfaces, columns, lintels, and even the roofs are carved. Now let's think about that. Like, who decorates their roof with painstaking, just beautiful, ornate relief carvings, right? The top of the roof that nobody's ever going to see, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why would somebody do that? It says there are miles of reliefs illustrating scenes from Indian literature, including unicorns, griffins, winged dragons, pulling chariots, as well as warriors following an elephant-mounted leader and celestial dancing girls with elaborate hairstyles. So, yeah, if they had elephants, maybe the transport of this seems more doable, okay? However, what about the ornate carvings everywhere and even on the rooftops? I mean, it really just doesn't stack up to make logical sense according to our standard paradigm. It really doesn't. And it says the reliefs have unicorns, griffins, so basically hybrid creatures, Nephilim, right? That we hear told in even the ancient Christian and Judeo-Christian scripts or whatever. So you've got chimeras, man, half-bred, basically genetic engineering going on here, right? I mean, that's what a griffin's, winged dragons and such are. Right, and it definitely appears that there were more than one known culture involved in the influence of this sort of place. But according to the modern or the standard history, all of these different places weren't in communication with one another in order to have such a juncture, right? So, anyways, the gallery wall alone is decorated with almost 1,000 square meters of bas reliefs. I mean, come on, what did this take 10,000 people 100 years just to do the bas reliefs? Or, were they able to have some sort of a geopolymer? It just makes more sense to me that they would have some sort of a geopolymer where they could cut out a freaking, what's the word I'm looking for? A cast. They could have a cast and just like pour geopolymer into the cast, crack that thing open, and you've got these sort of ornate um, reliefs. I mean, that makes more sense to me than trying to hand carve with chisels um, thousands of square meters of such reliefs. I mean, it's absurd to me. It really is. Also, holes on some of the Angkor walls indicate that they may have been decorated with bronze sheets. I mean, could you imagine this place if it had bronze sheets all over it? It would probably blind you to look at it in the wrong light. Um, I mean, you can, I don't know. It just doesn't. It's a real mystery, man, and I think actually they're uncovering a lot of it. And one thing I watched on a documentary recently about this place, and I wish I could show you some of it, but I don't want to get a strike, was that basically, shit. Sorry, y'all. Where is it? I don't have it. I'm sorry. But if this thing was covered in bronze sheets, I mean, what a jewel it must have been. And like, what was it? Could you imagine trying to strip the bronze out of something like that? It probably took them 100 years just to strip the bronze off of it, right? I mean, it's just it's crazy. Well, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know about this. Like, it doesn't really. It doesn't fit into the standard paradigm. There's no real explanation for it. Now, according to there's like French archaeologists. Oh, I know what I was gonna to say a minute ago. Basically, this temple structure is owned by the biggest corporation in the area, or the biggest corporation in Cambodia, and they charge you like $20 a day just to go walk in the place and look around, which to me is absurd. I think it's all of our heritage. It shouldn't be owned and pimped out by some corporation. I mean, that just makes me absolutely sick. But they are, I guess they're taking that money and they're uncovering hundreds and hundreds of temples, and probably not on this grandiose stature, but there's hundreds of temples that are sort of not been discovered yet. Now, of course, they found these temples by NASA from space, of course, right? Well, of course they didn't scan this area from space, but even NASA claims that the second run that they did of like this ground penetrating or foliage penetrating radar, that they used basically a spy plane, right? Because of course we know space doesn't exist, satellites are a joke, it's a scam, and of course they're using planes. But these sort of they do have penetrating radar technology, and they found literally hundreds of temples, canals. This was just a massive, like, this picture doesn't even do it justice, man. Like, there's no way you could get all of this into one sort of picture. There's no way you could get it all into one talk. It's amazing, man. I'm in love with me some Angkor Wat. Let me just say. So yeah. Um, what else? What else? Yeah, built in a day, they say. Wouldn't that be something? So yeah, how long have we been going? I have no idea. Let's see if this thing will work. 41 minutes. Goodness gracious. It's a cannabis temple. Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to read the chat. It's just going way too quick. Mamma Mina. Mina is doing better. She's doing fine, y'all. Yeah, she kind of snapped out of that a couple days after I did my last stream, so that was nice. Trees don't grow in squares like that. Yeah, I don't know. They claim to know where they got the rock from. Nina just asked, "Do they have they found the quarries where they got the rocks from?" And to know where they have gotten them from, but I don't know how they could actually definitely verify that. I mean, I'm certainly no geologist, but I can tell you I've seen enough evidence to know that it doesn't necessarily take millions of years for stones to form, right? I mean, look at the London hammer. That's London, Texas, if I've got that right. It's basically like a definitely man-made hammer that is encased in some solid granite or some solid marble or whatever, indicating that the hammer was made 350 million years ago, to geologists, right? So I'm no geologist, although I am smart enough to realize that such a thing is impossible, right? And I think we all are here. So yeah. Trees don't grow in squares like that, not without some sort of intervention, yo, but seriously, I might not know it all. Yeah, no, they damn sure don't. It's like the water just knows where to go. Soul Connect says, listen to Terence McKenna about speaking things into existence, and Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas saying the same. The problem is people don't even know what reality is, what mind is, or the external world. Right, so like when you start looking into cymatics and the sacred geometry that's encoded in different sound frequencies, to me, it's not like a huge leap to suggest that uh, maybe they weren't cutting and transporting stones at all. Maybe they weren't necessarily using any sort of geopolymer. Maybe they had the ability just to use certain sound frequencies, harmonic resonance, in order to basically, more or less talk these things up, right? I mean, as crazy as that sounds, to me that makes more sense than Neanderthals on donkeys, and chisels doing this sort of thing. I mean, it makes a lot more sense that this is some sort of a harmonic resonance frequency technology that we don't fully understand. That makes more sense to me than the conventional explanation. So yeah, love Terence McKenna's stuff for sure. So let's see some interesting chats here, you guys. Thanks for that. Always love to hear your thoughts. And there's just so much to this sort of topic. You could probably spend a lifetime doing stuff just on Angkor Wat and never talk about the same thing twice. You know what I mean? So yeah, of course the stream is going to start crapping out on my end. It's probably just this computer. Q Tuttle says heat spirals, wind spirals, light waves are spirals, magnetic vortices spiral, atoms reveal spirals. Yeah, I mean, agreed. The idea or the paradigm that light waves, for example, are photons that behave as a particle and a wave, in my opinion, that means they are not a particle or a wave. Perhaps they are just, light waves or light. The existence of light may just be some sort of a perturbance in the ether itself, and that's what we're picking up on. I really don't think that you've got little particles of photons, going at light speed and hitting you in the eyeball. I just don't think that's the deal, man. I really don't. Magnetic vortices, yeah, I mean, even Tesla, and Tesla is definitely a whole nother can of worms, but even Tesla, understood the concept of rotational magnetic vortices. The Earth itself generates a massive rotational magnetic vortex, and if you can tap into that with some sort of technology, couple that with, Cymatics technology, I think a lot of things are possible that we have. Well, as a society, as a culture, we have amnesia to, and it seems like that was definitely done by design. It wasn't like, yeah, we had a cataclysm for sure. We had worldwide floods and mud floods and all these cataclysms, but for whatever reason, it seems as if there was a vested interest in forcing future generations of people to forget about this, right? And so, um, you can go really down the rabbit hole on this, but I agree. Soul Connex, I agree. Q Tuttle. Hey, thanks, Andres. 42 minutes. Yeah, probably not going to go too much longer, but because I got through the points that I wanted to get through, but I'm gonna keep reading through your chats. And sorry for the stupid screen share. I know. Sorry. Soul Connex frequency. Yeah. Tinfoil Hatter. What's up, Bubba? All I'm saying is don't be so sure. Yeah. Yeah, fight the flat earth. Don't support Margyle's drug addiction. Yeah, my hypothetical, non-existing drug addiction. If no one watches, perhaps he will go to get a life for himself. Yeah, I've got a life. Trust me. But, I wouldn't say that sitting around watching a video that you don't like and complaining and making up fucking rumors would qualify as having a life. So, if you don't like me, dude, and you don't like the video, then why don't you just go away, bro? Miracle Drug says, I can barely hear you. I'm sorry, man. This is as loud as this thing will go. Really? God, this is the first time ever I've had people tell me they can't hear me. So, I guess maybe that's a blessing in disguise. Because usually everyone complains that I'm too damn loud. Right? So let's see. Yeah, I could talk about Angkor all day. There were actually a couple other things I did want to talk about here. Let me go back here to this. Construction techniques. Yeah, this is the one that I wanted to look at because this is the official story as to how they made this incredible structure. They say that the stones, as smooth as polished marble, were laid out with mortar with very tight joints that are sometimes hard to find. The blocks were held together by mortise and tenon joints in some cases, while in others they used dovetails and gravity or density and buoyancy. Right? The blocks were presumably put in place by a combination of elephants, quarter ropes, pulleys, and bamboo scaffolding. Yeah, let's put into place hundreds of meters or hundreds of feet up into the air, some ton and a half stones with bamboo scaffolding, right? I mean, that's just absurd. This Henry Muhat noted that most of the blocks had holes 2.5 centimeters in diameter and 3 centimeters deep, with more holes on the larger blocks. Some scholars have suggested that these were used to join them together with rods, but others claim they were used to hold temporary pegs and to help them maneuver them into place. So, I mean, this just says right here, scholars are arguing they can't agree on how exactly they built this and what was the purpose of these holes in all the blocks. So basically, you know what that tells me? They don't know how the hell they did it. So they're going to say, oh, well, they used bamboo scaffolding and they used elephants because that's the only thing that fits with their paradigm and kind of makes some degree of sense if you're a complete globetard, right? So yeah, 5 to 10 million sandstone blocks. I already read that. Da, da, da. Okay, so yeah, this is what I thought was funny. So okay, while excavating Kajuru, Alex Evans, a stonemason and sculptor, recreated a stone sculpture under 4 feet, 1.2 meters. This took about 60 days to carve. Roger Hopkins and Mark Linner also conducted experiments to quarry limestone, which took 12 quarrymen 22 days to quarry about 400 tons of stone. And I'd like to see what techniques they use to recreate this, because they'll say that they're recreating what they did, and then they'll have power tools and it's just ridiculous. The labor force to quarry, transport, carve, and install so much sandstone must have run into the thousands, including many highly skilled artisans. The skills required to carve these sculptures were developed hundreds of years earlier, as demonstrated by some artifacts that have been dated to the 7th century before the Khmer came to power. So, it really is, even according to Wiki, I mean, they come out and admit it, not in so many words, that they don't know how the hell they built this, and they really can't figure out what the purpose of certain features on these stones was. So it really is truly a mystery, although I think that if more, intelligent people with an understanding of reality, an actual understanding of reality, took a crack at this, I think that we'd see some really awesome results and new technologies come out of that very quickly. And so, I would just venture to guess that the powers which ought not be are not happy about flat Earth for sure. That whole movement. They're not happy about this whole Antiquitech revelation, right? Yep, they sure indeedy are. The Stone Age never ended, y'all. What was the next one? One more time? Well, they went into bronze and copper and I guess steel, and now we're in the space age. What a joke. We went from the Stone Age to the space age, right? So that's basically going from Angkor Wat to frickin' Santa Claus. You know what I mean? So the evidence suggests, Q Tuttle says, that they eased levitation, high frequency sound waves for cutting and teleportation. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, when you look at the new technologies involving Caesar, so lasers with sound, yeah, it makes a lot of sense that if they were actually cutting living rock out of quarries, they weren't using chisels and hammers. They were probably using well, no, it makes a lot of sense that they may have been using some sort of high frequency sound resonance, harmonic resonance sound. Some of the tool marks in Egypt show rotary tool usage. Yeah, there's a lot of ancient structures where they've got columns and stuff that appear to have been built on massive lathes, right? And so we have lathes today that are not nearly of that size. I mean, I guess we could build them. Um, but yeah, there's tool marks. There is evidence all over the ancient stuff that prove just they don't suggest, but they prove that they were using technologies that we don't believe, or that standard history doesn't believe that these people had access to. Am I going to Flattoberfest? I don't know, Twitchy. I'm not. I don't know. I'd love to go, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. But yeah, I would love to go. If I'm able to do it, I shall. And if I'm unable to do it, then I will miss it. But well, I loved the Denver conference. I got to meet with lots of really cool people, man. It's the last year's conference was awesome. Got to be in the same place with not hundreds, but over 1,000 bona fide flat earthers, and so it's kind of nice being in the majority as opposed to being the minority, right? So Tinfoil Hatter says, yeah, it's beyond me. I'm not good with a chisel or whatever. Well, yeah, I don't give a damn how good you are with a chisel, man. You know, I just the monumental task of quarrying and moving and putting together, and not to mention the architectural design, and then the relief carvings. I mean, it's just it I well, yeah, maybe it was hundreds of thousands of people, but still, I don't know, man. It doesn't fit with the timeline. Yeah, Twitchy, I would love to as well. So yeah, if I can make it, I shall. Need to get my transmission fixed. My car, my van won't come out of third gear. So it does pretty good in third gear if you're going about 45 or 50. But if you're going 60 or 65 down the highway, you'll literally go through gas. Like you can watch the gas hand go down. Like, oh my god. Twitchy says some of those blocks weighed something like 1,500 tons. That seems more feasible to me, bro, because Wiki said 1.5 tons, but like if you look at some of these blocks, if I can find where I found them, pictures like, excuse me, the one over this guy's head, right here, if you can see it. Oh, it's not going to make it big for me. Well, there you go. Can I go? Yeah, like something like this, above his head, that sort of a block is way more than 1.5 tons. I can promise you that. Um, and if you look at in Syria, just to switch gears a little bit, look at the types of blocks that they were using in Syria. So, like, let's see, monolith in Syria. I think this is one of the largest ever found, and they were still sort of quarrying it. But let's see, here it is right here. This thing right here, again, this is in Syria, so this is all the way over in frickin' the other side of the world, basically. But to me, it either looks like they were quarrying. I mean, look at the guy. If I can make this bigger, that would just be stellar. Hold on, let me try to make this bigger. Oh, of course not. It's not going to let me see it bigger. So what a jib. I'm going to have to start. I don't have Photoshop or any of my softwares on this computer, guys. So just bear with me. I am sorry. So hopefully you can see this. Maybe I can do a little trick here. Make it bigger this way. No, of course not. Oh, it kind of. Nope. One more time back. Whatever. Well, anyway, this is the, if you just Google image search monolith Syria, you'll find this. Now, to me, this looks like either the thing's growing out of the damn ground, or it was turned over and mud flooded. Basically, I mean, half of it's buried in the ground, right? But this thing here, again, this is in Syria, very ancient. I forget how large they or how heavy they say this is, but it was like many, many tons, many, 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 many tons. And so, yeah, whatever these ancient cultures had, they had some sort of an ability to do things with living stone that we don't have that ability. And again, this is a testament unto itself, man. I mean, yeah. So, right. I mean, so like let's say you've got even a 2 ton block, right? 2 tons is 4,000 pounds, if I've got that right. So 4,000 pounds. If you've got 10 guys, that means they've each got to lift 400 pounds, right? Well, I'm just saying to get people around it, you know, you might could do it with 20 guys, but that's not feasible. So yeah, okay. So they had pulleys, they had bamboo frames. Um, yeah, it's just not feasible. So I don't think they can hear you, babe. So it seems like I'm talking to myself and not making any sense because I'm having a conversation with you. So yeah, it's all good. No worries. But yeah, man, Angkor Wat, and um, I'll probably end up doing more stuff on Angkor Wat just because it's so fascinating. I think there really is something key here. Um, and again, this is one of those places that is, it's not taught. It's not taught in our conventional sort of K through 12, or even maybe when you get up into college, you'll learn about it. I remember learning about Machu Picchu in high school, but never Angkor Wat. Maybe I just missed it, or skipped that day, or fell asleep. But and like some of these images, just a testament to the age of this place. You've got trees that are grown for God hundreds of years to basically uh, engulf this some of these structures. I mean, it's just crazy. And look at these, like you look at these sort of faces that they've got into the stone. I mean, the perfect symmetry. I'm sorry, you can't get things perfectly symmetrical like that with a hammer and chisel. It just ain't gonna happen, dude. You gotta have technology to achieve these sorts of features, man. Um, so yeah. So increase my volume. I wish, dude. I'm gonna have to go back in, push the volume up, please. Let me see. Hold on. And by the way, I've never, ever, ever used Windows 10 except for a couple times. I know I'm a throwback. I've used Windows 7 intentionally for years, and this computer I'm on now had Windows 7 until recently, where it automatically upgraded me to the get WinX, the Windows 10 spyware shit software. Excuse the French. But yeah, that's what I'm stuck with, and so like I don't even know how to get into my let's see here. What would it be? Control panel, sound, yeah, sound. So like I can do it from here. How generic is that? Like when did they take away your ability just to go? I don't know. Maybe I'm okay. So recording. Here we go. Microphone levels. Oh well, there we have it. So now I'll probably be way too loud, but I'll do it at 75%. Hopefully that changes it. So let's see. Check, 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 check. Oh yeah, that's probably better. Let me go ahead and up it to 100%. I don't want to blow your eardrums out, but might as well, because you can always turn me down. Oh, and it's got a boost too. Wow, let's really mess with you guys. Check, checkity, check. That's probably better. Okay, so the next stream I do, you guys will be able to hear me clearly throughout. Sorry about that. I appreciate you telling me, and I'm sorry I didn't. Sorry I didn't listen the first time. Yeah, let me know if you can hear me better, and I'll probably take this as a learning experience, and maybe I'll get someone to teach me how to use OBS better, because I really do suck at it. I tried to learn it myself, with VTM's video tutorials and stuff, and just never really used it much. Yeah, it's just another example of the completion backwards principle, whatever that is. Twitchy says, I still have an XP system. Lucky dog. Windows XP was by far the best. Oh, you don't get online with it. Well, see, that's why I went with 7 and stuck with 7. I mean, I know I'm generic or whatever, but didn't like 8, didn't like the interface changes that they did. And 10, they kept all the stuff I hated about 8 and got rid of a lot of the stuff that I liked about 7 and XP as well. Okay, so that's better. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Of course, by default, the microphone was way too low. So I do apologize for that, y'all. And I'm not going to go through all this again, but I guess what I will do real quick is just mention the correction to the last stream that I did. I said that I thought, and I believe I even made the caveat that I could be wrong about this, but I mentioned that the Taj Mahal was, the legend said that it was built in a day. And of course, I was wrong about that. What I meant to say was Angkor Wat. According to the legend, the construction of Angkor Wat was, according to this Chinese traveler in the 13th century, some believe that the temple was constructed in a single night by a divine architect. So, I'm not saying that that's necessarily true, although I would not be surprised to learn that it was true, because, again, that would make more sense than 100,000 slaves built it in, however many years they say. But anyway, I'm constantly getting interrupted here in my back, so I'm gonna end this one, guys. But it was a blast. Really love y'all. Appreciate you hanging out. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so through PayPal at www.paypal.me/themorgile, or become a recurring contributor through Patreon at www.patreon.com/themorgile. So anyway, thanks again, you guys. Love y'all, and let me see if I can end this stream successfully.